As I previewed on the program yesterday, the House Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the federal government held its first hearing today. The hearing included testimony for Senators Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley and focused on the documented incidents of bias against conservatives from the Department of Justice. The subcommittee has both subpoena power, the ability to access Intelligence Committee information, and a commitment to follow the truth wherever it leads. Joining me now to discuss this is Congresswoman Harriett Hageman, making her first appearance on Washington Watch since her recent election to Congress. She serves on the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the federal government. She represents the state of Wyoming's at-large congressional district. Congresswoman, welcome to Washington Watch. Great to have you.
Thank you, Tony. It's wonderful to be here.
So tell us about today's hearing. This is a pretty significant committee, by the way, and congratulations on being put onto this committee. Chairman Jim Jordan, longtime friend of mine and tenacious in getting to the facts. I am thrilled to see the work of this committee. Tell us about this first hearing today.
Well, it is momentous, and it is an incredibly important committee. We have to get to the bottom of what has been going on with our federal government. And the title or the name of the committee itself, I think, tells exactly what we're looking into. The weaponization of these agencies and the White House, the executive branch, against citizens of this country, primarily focused on differences in political opinion. The conservatives have been being targeted for quite some time. We know what the IRS did with the Tea Party. We know how the IRS was weaponized in order to make it so that our various Tea Party groups could not get the tax-exempt status that they needed to be able to operate. That was only the beginning. Well, maybe it wasn't even the beginning. Maybe that was something that had been going on for quite some time, but that's when we started seeing it being exposed. And that's what this hearing today is about, and what we will continue to do in working on this committee to expose what's going on with the federal government.
Senator Johnson is a frequent guest on our program, and I listened to his testimony today, and he made reference to what you just talked about with the IRS. And, you could say, well, that was a one-off. But then he followed up, and some of the stuff that he said, quite frankly, was shocking, that our own government, here's, in fact, Senator Grassley, another longtime friend, guest on this program, both of them saying that the FBI, the federal government, trying to undermine the work that they were doing to try to expose what was happening, in fact, marginalizing and discrediting their work.
Both of them gave very powerful testimony. I knew some of the backstory with what they had been doing and what they had been subjected to. But even today, they were only given 10 to 12 minutes to be able to explain in a very succinct form what they've been through and what they've uncovered. And what they discussed is just really shocking in a republic like the United States of America. We always have to remember that the government is only there to protect our natural rights. And the fact that it has been weaponized the way that it has to go after the political enemies of the Democrats is something that should be frightening to everyone. And they exposed today exactly that, what happens when the federal government becomes the enemy of the people.
Now, I know you're just getting started. It's a first hearing, but I know you've been preparing for this. This is new. You've come to Washington to serve the folks of Wyoming. Are you surprised at just how bad it is? Even though you knew there was a problem, is it worse than you thought?
I think probably in some ways it's going to be, I'm going to find that it's worse than I thought, but I also am heartened by the fact that we're getting the information out there. I have been paying a lot of attention to this for quite some time. As you may know, I'm a water and natural resource and constitutional attorney. So I've been focusing on what the federal government is doing to the great citizens of this country in my practice, in my legal work. And so I've been fully aware at how the federal government especially has been targeting conservatives, Republicans, religious organizations to further a liberal political agenda. And so some of the information I'm well aware of. I believe that over the next year and a half, as we continue with these kinds of hearings, I think we will be uncovering incredibly important information to make sure that our government is held accountable.
Well, Congresswoman, I think the committee's already having an effect. Yesterday on our program, we had one of your fellow committee members, Dan Bishop, was on the program, and a report, a news article had come out about the FBI and a memo targeting radical traditionalist Catholic ideology. And this came out of the Richmond field office last month, warning that this group was a threat, or groups. And it was based upon information from the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a discredited leftist organization which has targeted us and led to a shooting here at our building. But today, I mean, within 30 minutes of the start of the subcommittee hearing, they released a statement retracting that memo. So I think the committee is already holding government accountable.
I think that's exactly right. But them retracting that letter does not mean that we should not get to the bottom of why it was written in the first place, because that is a culture and mentality that we need to ferret out and find out where it's coming from, why it is finding a foothold in the FBI.
Excellent point.
We can't just, even when they correct something,
Excellent
we need
point.
to get to the underlying reason as to why it happened.
You are absolutely correct. Thank you for bringing that, because it is a culture. This is a cultural issue at the FBI and in the government and this happens all the time. You catch them, oh, that was a mistake. We didn't mean to do that.
Right.
And so it is the underlying culture, and I am thankful this committee is there. So I know your time is short, but I want to ask you one final question. The subcommittee has said it is committed to following the truth wherever it takes them. What do you anticipate next?
Well, I think that we're going to be looking at a variety of issues. One of them that has been raised is the level of surveillance that we're all under with this government. You talked about the Chinese balloon, and obviously we had a foreign incursion over the last 10 days from China. But we also have a federal government that is surveilling us in so many ways, whether it's as something as requiring all livestock producers to use radio frequency identification ear tags. Why would the USDA be trying to impose something like that against our livestock producers? There's a whole variety of issues that we need to get to the bottom of. This is a First Amendment panel that we're talking about now. This is an issue about protecting the First Amendment and making sure that the FBI and DOJ are not infringing on our First Amendment rights. First Amendment in terms of freedom of speech, but also freedom of religion, as you just described with the letter that we discussed. But surveillance is a big one, and also just using agencies in a way to punish political enemies, which is something that's been going on for quite some time.
This is the final question. Citizens who have encountered things like this, can they communicate this to the committee to look at?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They need to get a hold of the folks that are on that committee. They can get a hold of our individual offices. The information from my office, for example, is on our website. If people have information of things that they have, personal information about ways in which the government is working against the citizens, then we'd like to know that.
All right. We'll put a link up to your site on our site. Congresswoman Hageman, thank you so much for joining us. Great to meet you. And again, congratulations on your election.
Thank you. We'll visit soon.